Game of Thrones, the TV series, did not understand the point of the Game of Thrones as it exists in the book series. And I say that because in the TV show, they seemingly miss the entire point that George is trying to make about the Game of Thrones, because they perceive it as a game. And so the question becomes, who wins the Game of Thrones? Who is the king or queen at the end of it all? But that isn't the question. It isn't a question of who wins the Game of Thrones. It's a question of who loses. And that's a central question of the series, because the point of this series isn't, a magical free-for-all where everyone is using their armies and their weapons and their dragons to try to win the pointy chair. The pointy chair is always the distraction. It is about how do we save humanity? And so that is the answer to the question of who loses the Game of Thrones. That is humanity. That is the small folk. That is the people who actually suffer when the High Lords play their Game of Thrones. Any conflict in this series, any war that does not revolve around the living just trying to live, or freedoms trying to be established, is an inherently negative and bad thing. Now, I know me adding that freedoms thing is going to get a little sticky because people are going to want to argue about which battles are for freedom, blah, blah, blah. But let me be very clear. Any battle that isn't taking place because a majority of humanity, of the small folk, are otherwise going to die unless this battle is fought, is an inherently negative thing. Because every other battle, every other war is a proxy war. It's a proxy war between rich, privileged individuals who are using the poor masses that are under their control to fight their battles for them. And that goes for all of them. The two main wars that we know of in the series, that the series either revolves around or calls back to, Robert's Rebellion and the War of the Five Kings, are both inherently negative wars. And everyone who is involved in them is fucked up and doing something bad. And yes, that includes our faves. That includes the Starks. The Starks in the Robert's Rebellion, the original war, and the Baratheons, the rebels who, hey, we're angry at the Mad King. They are also in the wrong here. In the present, Robb Stark is also in the wrong here. And I know your urge is going to be like, whoa, that's fucked up to say. They're fighting against tyranny. They're fighting against this, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. They're fighting against tyranny against themselves. Who are they? The High Lord noble people. Look at Robert's Rebellion. Look at the instigation of that war. Robert's Rebellion happens because Rhaegar the Crown Prince kidnaps Lyanna Stark. That causes Brandon Stark and Rickard Stark to be killed by the Mad King. And then after he kills them, he asks Jon Arryn to send him Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark to also kill. And then Jon Arryn declares war. But wait a second there. Okay, so 2 people died. 2 more people might have died, and then a 5th person was kidnapped. 5 people. And for 5 people, tens of thousands of small folk all die violent, horrific deaths for them. Why? Seriously, why? What is the point? What is the point of that? For the specialist families and their honor? What the fuck? Why do we care? We don't. The nobles care. That's why it's their Game of Thrones. Constantly throughout the series, you have characters referring to the nobles, to the High Lords playing their Game of Thrones, and when they do, it's the small folk who suffer. Yes, one of them might die here or there. One of them might lose a life, lose a family member, whatever. But on the whole, the people who are actually suffering are the small folk. And that's happening in the more recent war as well. The War of the Five Kings happens because Ned Stark is killed, and that sets off a succession crisis. So because Ned Stark, one person, is killed, and Robert Baratheon, one person, is killed at an inopportune moment, all of these people stake claims for the throne that they want, and then once again get tens of thousands of people killed. Why? Well, it's because it's what's right. What's right for who? This is nonsense. This is utter fucking nonsense. And don't just take my word for it, take George's. The Brotherhood without banners is George's answer to why this is fucked up, to why this isn't actually a good thing. In the books, the Brotherhood without banners are a group of people who were sent out originally by Ned Stark in the first book, because in the first book, if you'll remember, after Catelyn takes Tyrion, Tywin basically sends the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, out into the Riverlands to start sowing chaos, to start killing people and doing all this fucked up shit because he's angry. Again, small folk suffering because one guy is pissed that his son was kidnapped. Not killed, not actually harmed, but he's just pissed because they took his son. So all these people have to suffer and die for it. And so this group of people, or at least like the core of them before they become the Brotherhood Without Banners, are sent out by Ned Stark while he's still Hand of the King to go bring the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, to justice for the crimes he is currently committing. Now, unfortunately, in the interim, Ned Stark gets his head walloped off, and there's a new regime put in the South. But they go, hey, we still have a mission. We're still going to do it. And so they form the Brotherhood Without Banners, and their ranks begin to grow, and their entire mission evolves to become fighting back against these encroaching armies in the Riverlands without any care for which side the soldiers are on. Because that is the issue at hand here. It doesn't matter whether it's a wolf or a lion. They are harming the small folk all the same. We see countless examples of this in the book where, like, even the Starkmen, the noble Starks, are abusing the local populations because it's wartime and this is what we do. And so the Brotherhood Without Banners becomes a shield against the abuses of war, which are becoming prevalent once again that the country has been engulfed by it. They don't care who they are fighting for, in the sense of like what noble house or whatever. That's why they're the Brotherhood Without Banners. They're not doing it for the honor of a house. They are doing it to protect the people. And what's interesting about them is they are all extremely passionate about this while they are on that mission, while they are trying to protect the small folk, because they know that they are doing the right thing. But then the tragedy of the Brotherhood Without Banners is their mission gets superseded once Lady Stoneheart, the resurrected Catelyn Stark, is resurrected. Because their leader, Beric Dondarrion, he's the one with the flaming sword who keeps getting brought back to life over and over again. When the Brotherhood finds her body after the Red Wedding, he decides to give her the kiss of life, to basically let the lives that he keeps getting to live every time he's killed and brought back, he's going to give that to her. And so he kisses her, he ends up dying like a true death, and then she is resurrected. Except, unfortunately for everyone, because of the traumatic nature of Catelyn's death, she's brought back, basically frozen in that moment of time, that moment of rage and betrayal. And so Lady Stoneheart is just this chaos demon, this agent of revenge, and it's revenge for her family. And so from that point on, she is now leading the Brotherhood because their leader basically, conferred that leadership and his life over to her. And she is doing something inappropriate with it. She is not respecting what the mission was because, in her resurrected form, she is trapped in this rage-filled state. And so their mission goes from like, hey, the focus on just like protecting the small folk, to their real goal now is basically just killing any Lannister and Frey that they come across. So yes, sometimes that still helps the small folk, but you can tell that a lot of them have been brought down by this shift in the mission. The focus is no longer the small folk, it's now like the families that deserve another noble family's revenge. And the Iron Throne is the symbol of everything that is wrong here. It is this thing that is being pursued by a lot of these noble families, either directly because they want to be on the throne or they want to have influence, and it is the cause of all the small folks' troubles, because the families and their obsession cause them to abuse the small folk instead of protecting them, instead of protecting life. And if you want to argue that the TV show did get it at the end because we had the whole destruction of King's Landing, yeah, but then what happens immediately after? We blow everything up and then okay, well, now let's get back to the real mystery. Who's gonna be king? Oh, Bran the Broken? Cool. I got this question a while ago asking if I consider the book series to be inherently nihilistic, or if the TV series handling of the main themes kind of skewed people's perception. And it's the latter, in my opinion. The series itself, I do not think is nihilistic. I think it is trying to examine these deep and heavy issues, the impact that war has on people and how it is the result of abuses of power. And things won't change until the leaders are forced to change, until they are forced to use their privileged positions to fight for life, to fight for the masses, instead of their own vanity, their own ego, their own position, as informed by this fucking thing. And ultimately, I think we will get there in the series. Okay, fuck this pointy chair and good night, y'all.